And it reminded me of an anecdote that was told to me by the now former president of Bar Ilan University. Effie knows, a lot of people know that one of the biggest innovations in Israel is drip irrigation. And that's part of the reason why Israel can grow so much on so little land. Most of you don't know it was actually invented in a kibbutz. And most of you don't know it was invented by the former head of Bar Ilan University. He was working in a kibbutz, he was 19 years old. He was in charge of watering the plants, the trees. And he came in the morning and figured out that it's easier for him to just make holes in the irrigation lines than to actually water every one of the trees. And so that's what he did. He went in, made holes, and sat down. And after about 3 months, he was caught by the kibbutz and immediately discharged for destroying property on the kibbutz. They obviously figured out he was not working. He was watering the plants better, but he was not working, and so he was discharged. And another kibbutz actually issued the patent for the innovation. Sometimes it's not enough to actually just innovate on technology. You also need to understand the business side and the potential in that innovation. And I think that one of the main issues that we haven't identified yet, the combination of technology innovation, which I'll talk about in the next few minutes, and business models actually make the future green by inevitability, not by selection, not by choice. Because the current interests that we have in front of us, the current interests who are protecting the status quo, are going against innovation. But innovation is stronger than the status quo and those business interests. I'm going to use this map, which I thought I'd have a bigger screen behind me. So this is merely an eye test and a lot of colors. But this is the actual energy map for Israel, circa 2007. The two big lines that you see on the left are coal and petroleum. Black, green. And the gray box you see on the side, on the top right side, is wasted energy. The amount of energy we actually use out of these big green and black lines is that gray box right there in the middle. And most of it goes through electricity, is the box on the top. And petroleum, you know what it goes for, actually to drive cars. And the question that we're asked, is the future green or not? What's this map looking like in 2025? If you write to me afterwards on Facebook or LinkedIn, I'll send you the slides. You don't need to copy them, and you don't need to try and understand the numbers. These are the two forces that will shape the world, and I use the number 2025 on purpose so that we don't argue over when will it happen. It's just inevitable. It will happen. So this is another big map from NREL, from the agency in the US that looks at energy. And it's a map that looks through time at the efficiency of solar panels. And if you can understand one thing from this map, is all lines are going up and right. Right? So if you see where we've been in the past, that's sort of 7%. And if you look at where we are going into the future, is sort of 50% efficiency. Now, when you start from 7% and you move to 50% over a period of about 30 to 40 years, and you look at change in the last year, the answer is nothing. But if you look at something that changes from 7% to 50%, and you're somewhere along this path, and you're asking yourselves, when will this win over what we do today? The answer is, it's inevitable it's going to win. It's just a question of time. So let me share with you a bit of time. 2009, best panels, 16% efficiency. 2013, a company called Solar City is using panels that are 20% efficient. Now, Solar City also brought in a new business model. They don't ask you to buy the panels, they just sell you electricity. Solar City will install just in the US in about 10 states, not across the entire US, $3 billion worth of solar panels in the next year, on an improvement from 16% to 20% efficiency. Now, what we're seeing now, SunPower, for example, has actually done new panels. They're 44% more efficient than their previous generation 3 years ago. And this is the most efficient new panel technology, just came out. It's 44.5% efficiency. It's a tiny cell that actually includes on it receptor and a lens. Now, these things take time until they actually get to your homes. But once they've invented, just like a hole in a pipe, it works, it's inevitable. It gets there. Now, another technology that I worked around for the last 5 years, you're carrying in your pockets, which is changing every industry that we know to date. It's called batteries. Now, if you look at the cell phone in front of you, or in your pocket, it's supposed to be on silence right now, and you look at the innovations that have enabled this revolution, which, by the way, for most people in the press, this will kill you, right? This technology has just destroyed the entire media globally and changed it drastically from one angle to another. Now, what's new in this phone? Is it the screen? No, the screen at your home on your laptop 10 years ago was just as good. It was bigger. Is it touch? We had touch 20 years ago. Is it the chip technology from Intel? Actually, if you asked Intel, they had better, bigger chips, CPUs, 10 years ago than they have today in those phones. The only thing that changed is that the battery that can drive this size of screen with this kind of usage is now able to run it for about 20 minutes less than you actually work in a day, because every time at the end of the day you run out of battery. That battery, that lithium-ion battery, has gone down in price from 2010, you look at the curve on the left, $1,000 per kilowatt hour, to 2015, $200 per kilowatt hour. Now, it's not Moore's law, but it's pretty close. And if you look at the curve and where it's going to, and this is public information, we're going down to about $100 per kilowatt hour by the end of this decade, by 2020. Now let me translate $100 per kilowatt hour to electric car terms, to kilometers. $100 per kilowatt hour on today's battery technology means that the battery will cost less than 1 cent per kilometer driven. Add to it electricity, 2 cents per kilometer driven, that's 3 cents, about 3 cents per mile, give or take. Now let's take the target efficiency goals for the US, which every car company is crying about right now, 35 miles per gallon by the end of the decade. And multiply 35 miles per gallon by 3 cents per mile, that's $1 a gallon. Now to get $1 a gallon, President Zedillo, you know that just as much as I do, to get $1 a gallon in a US gas station, Mexico needs to give away oil for free to the US, $0 per barrel. That's never going to happen. So we have a technology that is bound to hit the cost of $0 per gallon equivalency on the cost of oil. You carry that technology in your pocket. And the reason we have that technology is because we have innovators that are just leapfrogging with better and better and better technology every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And that curve of improvement in battery technology continues to go. As a matter of fact, the battery that we're talking about, the $100 kilowatt hour battery, is already there in the lab. It just takes 7 years until it goes out into a car. And when that technology, be it in a solar panel or be it in a battery, happens to exist in mass production, in mass volume, the cost on a per unit goes down. And the per unit could be an hour of light, it could be a gallon of water, it could be a kilometer driven, a mile driven, it could be anything you want. But we have this going on pretty much in every part of our technology innovation around energy and around consumption. When a solar panel is at 45% efficiency, you desalinate water in Africa and you plant the seeds next to the ocean because that's the cheapest water you can get. You no longer ship seeds or food, you desal the water right where it is. When you have the ability to drive on electricity that was generated by solar panels, you no longer import oil from places where you don't know if there will exist a year to 5 years from now. And that curve is combined with a business model that is called an operator, a utility. A renewable operator comes into the market and says, if you're willing to pay that much for what you're buying right now from a fossil-based provider, if you're willing to pay 15, 16, 17 cents per kilowatt hour, Solar City, pay me 15 cents for the next 20 years. I'm not going to increase the price on you for the next 20 years and buy nothing at all. Don't buy solar panels, don't buy anything at all. Just pay me what you pay them. I'll even give you 5, 10, 15% discount. And you buy it from me for the next 20 years, and I will ride that curve of innovation down. As the costs for me continue to go down, I will take that profit into my own pocket. Thank you very much. Now, that model makes the world inevitably green because the world is inevitably capitalistic in nature. If you can make profit, somebody will. And that inevitability is in the foundation of the map as I see it for Israel going forward. Let's look at that map again. And I want to break it, just for these two technologies that I've talked about, I want to break it for a second so that we see how the future looks. This is electricity in Israel today. You know that. If you've driven across Israel, it's a lot of coal. It's very, very, very little natural gas, which was there in 2007, disappeared and is coming back now, and very tiny bit of solar, unfortunately. That's the map in 2007. Now, how does this map look in 2025? We have found a ton of natural gas. I don't know, for the visitors here who are not from Israel, you may not know it, but the main pillar of Judaism is that we, the Jewish people, know that we were chosen. We were chosen to suffer. And so when we discovered that we have a ton, I mean, we're talking tons of natural gas off the shores of Israel, it really shook the fundamental belief in Judaism. And then the price of natural gas dropped from $8 an MBTU to $2 per MBTU, and we knew again, we were safe. But we have a ton of natural gas, and it seems very inevitable that we will go away from a 30% power plant driven on imported coal to 70% efficient power plant driven on natural gas. But with that in mind, we will also see solar panels coming in that will be better and better and better, and then they will be better than natural gas, even local natural gas. And we will see an increase, continuous increase, in installations of solar panels. Why? Because it will be cheaper. Not because it will be cleaner, not because we will turn green, just because it will be cheaper for some people to install those panels. Now, when does it happen? It depends on how we will price our natural gas electricity. And that depends on taxation. Now, here is where I agree with the president. I want to tell you one more story. When magnetism and electricity were discovered by Maxwell, they were not invented, they were just discovered by Maxwell over in Great Britain, he had a visit from the Exchequer, also known as the Secretary of Finance in most other countries. And the Exchequer went through his lab and he asked Maxwell, so what good is it? What are we going to do with it? Maxwell said, I still don't know, but I know you're going to tax it one day. So at the end of the day, the question for government is, when do you tax? And how do you use tax to drive your policy? If you tax something too early, you will kill it. Locally, it will happen somewhere else, but you will kill it locally. And then you will import it as it improves and improves and improves elsewhere. So this is our map on electricity. By the way, this is our map on petroleum today. We import a ton of petroleum. The big green line, all imported, all dirty, and it drives mostly cars. Here is the same line, by the way, with growth in the number of cars. Lines are drawn to proportion, energy proportion, when we go electric, and we will. Now, I used to put it at 2020, I now put it at 2025, because I'm not sure if we will be the ones exporting the technology or we'll be the ones importing the technology into Israel because of taxation. But these are the two lines put together into one big map, and this is Israel 2025. I know it, not because I've been there and I come back, I know it because it's inevitable. That's the cheapest way to drive market economy in 2025. On linear projections, on improvements of technology at 8 to 10%. Nothing big will happen. It will be 8 to 10%, slow, but constant. This is 2007. This is 2025. Which one would you prefer? And the answer is, it's not up to you. It will simply happen. It is inevitable. The question for Israel is only one. Will we let interests, today's interests, small, status quo interests, drive policy? Or will we let innovation lead the way and become exporters for this innovation to the rest of the world? That's the only question left to us. Thank you very much.